letting more people in. Tonight we have a special guest speaker, Inani Shabuil. I would love to introduce the rest of the room, but I would prefer if you guys can do that for yourself. So I would love to start with you, Chief. If you could just give me a little, your name.
Okay, Rawat, greetings. This is Chief Inani Shabuil, the Atsikata Nation of Yamasee Moors. Lien holder, stakeholder, we are creditors in fact. We're lien holders on the United States of America as well as Canada. I've been out to the United Nations in New York. We do interventions, inputs, and we are also sought out when they want inputs and questionnaires. And so I'm here tonight at the request of Othino here to present what was the theme, just so I can make sure that...
So the theme is race and ethnicity, these designations, this social construct, and the oppression that a lot of us just deliver onto ourselves without, by the way of not understanding syntax, not understanding constitutional definitions, not understanding corporate.
Exactly. It's a giant Monopoly game. To keep it real simple, we're all playing Monopoly. If you've ever played Monopoly, this is what you're playing, and they don't give you the rule book, but they force you to play. You are held responsible for it, and even though you don't have the statutes. And so now what we're doing is we're presenting this. We just had acknowledgement. I'm going to be showing a few of those in the PowerPoint presentation and some PDFs that I've done of acknowledgement that we've got from the UN, emails that we get from the UN. So when they ask us for inputs, we give it to them, then they respond, we get an email, and we put it up on Facebook so everybody can see, yes, the UN is acknowledging what we're doing. And the grievance that I have right now currently is the working group of experts for people of African descent. They did a TLC move, is what I call it. They creeped into Canada like they did into the US. They only went to Toronto, Ottawa, they went to Montreal, they went to Halifax, Nova Scotia. They never came out west. And so the report that they put against Canada, they were saying they weren't happy with what the treatment of African Canadians, how they're being treated, how the children are being taken from their families via Child Protective Services. And they said that this is alarming. And so my grievance was, well, why didn't you tell them when you came to Canada, quote unquote? We called it Turtle Island. Canada is a corporation exported into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We'll get into that later. So we said, why didn't you tell the African Canadians that they are actually white? Because that is a global standard. And when the PowerPoint presentation I'm going to show, you're going to see this.
Did you just say white?
I said white.
So yes, tonight we're going to be showing you guys many things. The Chief Inani Shabuil will be sharing with you guys many things. One thing that made major changes in my life was actually understanding or reading, disseminating the definitions that the Canadian federal government, the United States of America, as a federal corporation, what the definitions that they endorse. Right? So when you hear what the definition of white, when you hear the definition of American Indian or Alaskan Native, you may be surprised. If you have not heard these definitions, you may be very surprised. Tonight you're going to be previewed to that and many more.
Definitions that are in law.
Yes, the definitions that are in law that we will see do not denote scientific definitions of anthropological origins. Right? Also. So this is Facebook Live. This is about to get very live in here. I know some of you guys who are watching right now be like, I know this is going to continue. For you guys, it won't. I'm actually going to shut this off right now so we can get our learn on. This is all about unlearning, relearning, and setting ourselves forward. So it's about a positive movement. It's about detecting the subversiveness that the government continues to share with us, and that a lot of us, I say act like zombies and just pick up without question. So this is about uplifting. This is about opening up our minds to perspective and to subjective truth. Take care. Is that Jesse Lipscomb?
I was commenting on the Facebook Live well past. Right, crazy. I was in it, but out of it at the same time. Wild.
No. Yeah.
I was in two places at once.
I know.
I exported my consciousness into the AI.
Oh look, Will Smith just tuned in. No, Steve. You might want to see this, Will.
Come on with it.
Okay, great, so we got internet here, great.
So thanks everybody for coming out. For those who don't know, SAR is the reason why this all happened. And he's moving to New York.
It's gonna be too cool for us.
Does anybody in the room know the original name or the name for New York? So not what they call, just like Edmonton is Amasquatchie Waskaikan, I believe. Does anybody know what New York is?
No, sir.
Renanchqua Keskeskek.
Wow, that's tough. I'm like, as a marketing guy, I'm gonna say that New York's a little easier. Yeah, it's tough to get that hashtag that going. But it's good to know.
Yeah, like I found, like, for example, my parents were in Trinidad and Tobago. I was shown the information is that some of the original names, and Trinidad I found was Kyrie, so now I'm calling it Kyrie. Someone said, where you from Trinidad? I say Kyrie or Lili, which means land of the hummingbird.
What's Jamaica?
The ice is
Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
So yeah, wherever you guys are from, look it up. I'll challenge you to look it up.
That's right.
All right, so we're ready to go. We got internet, okay. Greetings. Before I start, I'd like to say a small invocation. Abdurkul Shah Yuat Biwa Samos Shopatimta. That means begin all things by first using all. What we're going to do here is we're going to get into the background. I've gone to a lot of international interventions and international meetings they have with OAS, the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and one of the things I've noticed is they don't deal with definitions. I am revealing this to you all. Focus on definitions. When you focus on definitions, you're going to get to the real source of the word. A lot of times we hear things, oh, that's nice. But when you look up the etymology of the word nice, that means foolish. So when we talk about race and ethnicity, social construct is a word that can be used. Programming is another word to use. So for anybody who is tech savvy, you're talking about a mental program that has been passed down from generation to generation. So when people say words, it has a tone, resonance, frequency, it has a vibration and energy. Black has a negative energy. Black is used to absorb. So now it's going to be, might be a little bit strange to hear when we say white power. White, we're not talking about skin color. We're talking about commercial status. And this is what they're not telling African Americans, African Canadians, Caribbean Canadians, Caribbean Americans. They're not telling them this, that globally they're on some different stuff. And so in the meantime, they'll have you still using the syntax. So when Barack Obama said, oh, we're taking Negro off the definition, and all the African Americans were jumping up and down, all right, there's no more Negro. I said, but African American is still the same thing. They didn't give you anything. It's sleight of hand. So we're going to start off with when people hear race, racism, well, that's racist. Let's look at the definition. Now this is online etymology dictionary. You can find that online, just Google it and it'll come up. So we're going to start off with race. Now it's a noun and it's going to give you the etymology and when it first came into being used. Now it means strong current of water, circa 1300. Originally any forward movement or swift running, but especially of water. From Old Norse, that is ras, a rushing. Race is the first noun. We're going to get down to that first definition. Via Norman French, the word entered French as ras, which might have given English race its specialized meaning of, quote, channel of a stream. especially an artificial one to a mill. This is recorded in English from the 1560s. So now that's race as a noun. Noun is a person, place, or thing. Now when we go into race as the verb, it's circa 1200. We know verb is an action word. Rasen, to rush, from a Scandinavian source, akin to the source of race. Noun, reinforced by the noun in English and by old English cognate, racing, to rush, headlong, hasten, and to rashly. Meaning, run swiftly is from 1757. Meaning, run in competition against is from 1809. Transitive sense of cause to run is from 1860 in reference to an engine, etc. Quote, run with uncontrolled speed is from 1862. So you're seeing race is talking about running, movement, water, a stream. Let me just move this down a little bit.
It's like currency. Water. Right, currency.
Okay, so now race, the second definition as the noun, people of common descent. So notice when we get down to the first one, it's not going to be the same. So it's a word from the 16th century from Middle French race, earlier raza, race, breed, lineage, family. Possibly from Italian razza, of unknown origin, cognate with Spanish and Portuguese raza. Etymologists say no connection with Latin radix root, though they admit this might have influenced the tribe, nation sense. Original senses in English included wines with characteristic flavor, 1520. Group of people with common occupation circa 1500 and generation 1540s, meaning tribe, nation, or people regarded as of common stock. Now that can also take a financial meaning as well. Stocks, bonds, etc. Is from 1560s. Modern meaning of one of the great divisions of mankind based on physical peculiarities is from 1774, though as old English definition points out, even among anthropologists there has never been an accepted classification of these. So now we've got our race, strong current of water, people of common descent as the noun. So now when we go down to the first definition of race, it's the act of running, circa 1300. From Old Norse, running, rush of water. Cognate with Old English race, a running, a rush, a leap, jump, a storming, an attack, or else survival of the Old English word with spelling influenced by the Old Norse one. So race, when you hear the word race, most people are thinking of color. When they go to the etymology, it's talking about, okay, water, it's talking about running, it's talking about what else? People of common descent. So now you have to specify and ask them, okay, what is your definition of race? Because according to the etymology, there's different words, there's different definitions for it. So this is the first one that I wanted to show. So when we go on to the next slide, this is the one that a lot of people have forgotten. Now in the United States, it's relevant to Canada, because if you look on the 1778 Articles in Confederation and Perpetual Union, in Article 11, that Canada was the only colony admitted into the United States. So the border that we have to cross or go through, that's an imaginary border. And to bring things up to speed for today, Canada gave their sovereignty over to the U.S. back in 2011 when Prime Minister Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. And so now they called it, if you look up or Google Barack Obama or Barack creates world's first super state, you will see where the sovereignty, so-called, of Canada has been taken over by the United States of America. What they're going to do is they're going to remove the border in between Canada and the U.S., put all the CBSA on the perimeter, because they have to compete with Europe. So if any of you have ever traveled to Europe, you like going to Europe because what? You go to Germany, you'll get a visa, you can go to Denmark, Norway, Sweden, you don't have to be worrying about going through customs all the time. And because of that, that is global competition for the US and Canada, because now they had an incident where a diplomat from India had came over to the US, and everyone knows, what do they call them, TSA, They were frisking everybody. You know how they were molesting everybody when you're traveling. And she was a diplomat from India. So as a diplomat, she had they're supposed to deal with her a certain way. So they got overly aggressive with her. And when everything was done, she said, "That's it, I'll never go back to the U.S. again." And so, of course, the U.S. had to apologize, and they said, "What is all this going on with frisking everybody? You have a choice. Either you go through metal detector or you take the pad down." The pad down is fine, but they're getting, over aggressive. But that's essentially what happened. So now, here's the next thing. Free white persons. Now, free white persons referred to in the Naturalization Act as amended on July 14, 1870, as meaning naturally given it to it when it was first used in First Statute 103. When we go down to the highlight here, it does not mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. So, the U.S. has already known since 1870 about the fact that when you hear free white person, it doesn't mean Caucasian. Now this is a book called America. Let me see if I can get the top of it. Okay, so I can get that. Okay. Okay, John Ogilvie is the author of this book called America. This is the chief that the conquistadors had requested to see, and she was, as you can see, she was brought out on a shield, or like a small vessel here, and she was brought out. See how dark-skinned she is. Now, if you want to buy the book and you have, I think it's what, $50,000 to spare, you can get the color, you can get an original. What, for those of you that may not know, any books that have real information about your history, they're going to make them at least anywhere from $10K and up. So the general public won't get it. It'll be somebody who's very rich, who is very well-to-do, that can afford it, and then they'll keep that amongst themselves. Now this is the picture here. So as you can see, this, and the title says America, so it got cut off here on this one. John Ogilvie is the author. And when you look at that, you can see how dark she is. You can see here another native, all dark skin, high melanation. Okay. How many of you are familiar with Dr. Cress Welsing, the ISIS papers? One?
No way.
Two? You've never heard of the ISIS papers by Dr. Cress Welsing, The Keys to the Colors?
I've heard of them, but when she passed away, everybody was talking about it. Crazy on social media.
Wow. Well, okay. We had her last lecture that she did at Howard University, because she always does a free lecture once a month, at Howard University. And I had some brothers that I know that were in Maryland, and they went, and before her lecture, they presented this. They presented the SF-181, which we're going to see shortly. They presented iPads, which is the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. They presented all of this to her before her lecture. Then when her lecture started and he finally got to ask her a question, he said, "Why are we still calling ourselves black? We should not be calling ourselves black." She started to squirm in the chair. This is Dr. Cress Welsing, who is an educated psychologist. This is her squirming. So I thought that was peculiar. Why is she doing that? So she had issued a challenge on Yusuf L. on Blog Talk Radio out of Atlanta. I don't know if you're all familiar with him or not. And she had issued a challenge. She said, okay, because she had a definition of what she called white supremacy. She said, if anyone has a better definition of white supremacy, give it to me. So I had people who were coming on our weekly addresses when we had them open to the public at the time. And one of them was the cousin of Yusuf El and said, you need to be on his show. I said, well, I will be on his show under one condition. I said, I want to face Dr. Cress Welsing because she issued the challenge that if anyone had a better definition of white supremacy, give it to me. And I said the best definition is leper supremacy. This was put in her hands. This is before Her last one, I think, was around June 2015, and then January of 2016 was when Dr. Cress-Welsing died. So the old definition, this is hers. Racism, white supremacy is the local and global power system and dynamic, structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white. Pay attention to that word, classify. Whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consist of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thoughts, speech, action, emotional response, as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people activity, economies, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, for the ultimate purpose of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth. A planet upon which the vast and overwhelming majority of people are classified as non-white, meaning black, brown, red, and yellow, by white-skinned people, and all of the non-white people are genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to the genetic recessive white-skinned people. Now, this is the ISIS papers by Dr. Cress-Welsing, The Keys to the Color. 20-minute, 15-second mark of Dr. Cress-Welsing interview on high frequency. 30-second mark, Dr. Cress-Welsing says, if anyone has a better definition, give it to me. And I have the link here, a definition of racism, January 17, 2014. Dr. Francis Cress-Welsing was born on March 18, 1935, is an African. If you like this show, you should follow High Frequency Radio Network. So this was the challenge that she had issued. So I responded to it. I had some brothers who were in Maryland who gave her the documents, and she smiled, she took it, and we asked the question, why are we calling ourselves black? She squirmed. So now I updated it and I said, okay, here's what it should be called. Race-ism equals leper supremacy. So, race-ism equals leper-supremacy, or racism equals leper supremacy, is the local, national, global, solar system, galaxy, matrix, 3D holographic, illusionary power system, construct, and dynamic, structured and maintained by lepers, in parenthesis, albinos / albinism, genetically recessive beings, who deliberately misidentify themselves as white. When they are in fact lepers. Refer to definitions above and Holy Tablets, chapter 6, tablet 6, verse 277 to 278, and there's an archive link there. In association with other non-planetary and interplanetary entities, whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thoughts, speech, action, spiritual, mental, temporal, energy, definition, code, language, tone, vibration, frequency, sound, light, resonance, motion, and emotional response as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people, and commercial activity. Economics, education, commerce, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, military, industry, sports, science, medicine, sex, and war, for the ultimate purpose of leper, misnomer, white genetic survival, and to prevent leper, misnomer, white genetic annihilation on Tiamat, Ta, Zurukaya, Kai. This is what was presented to her, and she had a group, she still has it, was the Cress-Welsing group on mental health in the black community. And we posted this on there, and we tagged quite a few people. We were expecting here some kind of a response, or even somebody to be upset, and there was no response to this. So the code word, or the proper word to be used, is leper and not white. And we're going to continue forward with the slide here. Okay, so now I know some of you, let me see if I can get this. Wanted to move this here. Okay, there we go. Okay, now some of you are seeing what I'm wearing, so you can see, you'll see Shriners will wear this, and okay, well, is he a Mason? Is he a Shriner? They got this from the Moors. Now, the Moors were also known as the ancient priesthood coming out of Kemet, you call Egypt, some know it as Tamaray. So it did not originate in Turkey, it didn't originate in Morocco, it originated in Kemet. Kemet, Egypt is where? North Africa, remember that. So this is, this was the Rose Bowl Parade in California. You can't see it here, it got cut off because we're doing full screen. But you can see that the woman here is wearing a knitted fez. Now, she's Native American. I think she might be Dene in that picture. So now she's wearing that. Why is she wearing this? Let me see if I can cut that. Okay, great. There we go, perfect. Okay, so you can see in the road, this is the Rose Parade in California, and the women who are Native American are wearing these hats. Now, why are they wearing these hand-knitted fezes if they're indigenous, if they were always here? It didn't originate here, or if it did originate here, somebody is lying. So this is just, I wanted everybody to see this, so you can see right there, this is a perfect shot, Rose Parade, Honda, everything, and they're wearing it, they're on horses. So where did that come from? That came from us, like everything else. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Let me get this back to that full screen again.
So isn't there just more than one headdress? So for example, there's the fez and there's also the turban.
Yeah, which originated with us as well.
Just hit slideshow.
Oh, slideshow?
And go from current slide.
And current slide.
Two more over.
From current slide. Okay, great. Great, much appreciated for that. Okay, so now this is the meat and potatoes. Now this here is that's what's called the Standard Form 181. Now this is a form that was put out by the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. It's from the Office of Management and Budget. Now what's significant about this is it says you fill this out if you're a federal employee, and most people who are from the states would say, well, you're only working for the federal government. If you're working for the federal government, that's the only way you would be filling that out. That's what they got everyone fooled again. Social Security number, Social Insurance number is issued from the government, the corporate government. For example, in the U.S., the Social Security number specifically says on the back, this is property of Social Security. So it's not your card, it doesn't belong to you. You're using that as a vessel in commerce, very much like you would be using a pawn or you'd be using a board piece on a game. That's what it is. So what they have here, we're going to get to the other definitions here. And you fill this out, you fax this in. They don't even want you to pop this in the mail. They want you to fax it in to the Office of Management and Budget. And what's significant about that is the Office of Management and Budget is right underneath the White House. The OMB reports directly to Barack Obama. The OMB is connected to the U.S. Treasury. Back in 2009, the U.S., I don't know if some of you had heard of it, the U.S. apologized to African Americans for slavery. Did anyone hear about that one? Okay. And so what happened is, when they apologized, we acknowledge we robbed you of your names and your heritage. Which means you can now claim your name and your heritage, but you have to do it under what? International law. And that's what Malcolm X had talked about on filing a petition with the United Nations for the damage that were done to the Negro. That was his words that he used at the time. So this form here, this SF 181 called Standard Form 181, this is how you change your commercial status from black to white. Now, for those of you, well, how does this matter to me? We're in Canada. Well, Canada is a corporation registered in Washington, D.C. on this U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Province of Alberta is called, they're filed as Her Majesty the Queen in right of the Province of Alberta, as represented by Alberta Investment Management Corporation. They're on 108th and Jasper. Plus they have an office in London and where's the other office? London, Edmonton, and there's one other office I'm missing right now. Oh, and of course, the filing that they have in Washington. So what does this all mean? When you go back to the 1778 Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, Canada was the only colony that was admitted into the Union. When you look at the 1945 Instrument of Surrender with Japan, Canada was called a dominion. They were not a country. They'll say, okay, well, Canada has a constitution. Canada does not have a constitution. There's a website called detaxcanada.org, and the guy's name is Eldon Warren. And I've communicated with him via email, and he's got a whole website on detaxing. And some of the areas pertaining to commerce, he's exposed the fact of Canada being a corporate company. The flag of Canada is a corporate logo. And the only ones that can use that, or you have to be an MLA or MP. If you, let's say, have a business and you want to put the flag of Canada on a business, there's an email. A company out of Vancouver was using the flag for advertising and got an email from Industry Canada who said it was. Say what?
It was a tobacco company, I believe?
Yes.
And used the Canadian flag.
And they got it from Industry. It was Industry Canada,
Yeah.
right? And they told them you need to take the flag off of your advertisement because you don't have permission. It is copyright and trademark property of the Crown/government. So it's a business, it's monopoly. So what you would do, and even though you're in Canada, it's still applicable because Canada is registered in Washington, D.C. So you put, yes, go ahead.
What about like the UK? Are we not under
The Queen.
Oh, you mean Elizabeth? Okay, that's a great question. That's a great question. Great question. Okay. Great question. Great question. Okay. Elizabeth is a fraud. And I'm not saying this without any backing. I've already done it at Edmonton Law Courts. And I told the judge I have the court transcript here, so you all will be welcome to get a copy of the transcript. I'll read some of it later on. And the problem with her was when she took her oath, she said, I swear to the utmost of my power to maintain, to bring justice and, to bring justice and goodwill in my judgments, and I swear to the utmost of my power to maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel. So what does that mean? When she did her coronation oath, there's a guy over in the UK, his name is John Anthony Hall. Hill, thank you. John Anthony Hill. Now I communicated with him, I got the jury verdict. He had to go to court because everyone remembered the 7/7 bombing in London? Under in the tunnel. So he is a filmmaker by trade. Law is not his thing. So he did a documentary to show it could not have been these guys because the line that they would have been on, it was down that day. The security cameras that should have been up were down that day. The video footage that the police claimed they had, they were able to take the video and they were using, what do you call it? Adobe Photoshopping the images where you could see if they're walking through, why is the bar or the rail showing through their hip? So they doctored it. So he sent that to the court saying, okay, you have the wrong guys. These guys didn't do it. They turned around and charged him for perverting the course of justice. Now, he was in Ireland at the time, so they extradited him from Ireland to England. So when he got into court, he's 60-something years old Amorite. So they said, we're charging you for perverting the course of justice. He said, I don't care about the charges. I'm challenging the Queen's sovereignty. So what he used was the Sovereign's Bible, and he used her coronation oath, where she took her oath, and then the priest is reading, and then she sits there and she was signing the contract, which she signed up at the top. The moment any legislation went through any legislature, she ceased being queen. And why am I saying that? The 1611 King James Bible is under a letters patent in perpetuity that was put there by King James. And King James also wrote a book called Demonology. So What that means is Elizabeth has been conducting a fraud. You ever heard of the nursery rhyme, the emperor has no clothes? This is what it is. So this old Amorite, John, is not an attorney or none of that, challenged her sovereignty, and he won. His first thing was the stone of destiny, which she was supposed to have, was not there, was in Scotland. So when she got coronated, that's why she wanted the cameras 30 feet away, because she didn't want the public to see that she didn't have the stone. And that was requisite of her to have the stone in order to get coronated. So she didn't have that. Then when she went and signed the contract, she turned around and the first legislation that passed, she ceased being queen because she cannot legislate. The laws of God is considered the laws of nature, natural law. You don't sit there and look at a bear in the woods and say, excuse me, are you a grizzly, are you a black bear, are you a cub, are you a female? No, you see bear and 9 times out of 10, you're running in the opposite direction. But when it comes to us, it's like, okay, I need to see some ID. Okay, yes, this is you. Mentally projecting you onto a one-dimensional piece of paper called the ID. Or it's also known as ego. Remember the cartoon, The Wizard of Id? You never? Oh gosh, I'm dating myself. It's in the comic books. It used to be in the Edmonton Journal.
Yeah.
Wizard of Id. That's because Id, see how they program you?
Yeah.
You're saying ID, but ID is known as Id, which equals ego.
Yeah, the id, ego, and superego.
Uh-huh. Right there in the cartoons. You want to watch some deep stuff? Watch children's cartoons.
But don't watch it for entertainment.
Yes,
Watch it for scholarship.
So, quick question. I was just,
Yes.
all right. And so earlier, the slide before, you said that the Native American women were wearing those hats, and and they originated from us.
Yes.
And so the question I have is like, who is us? And when are you diluted so much that you are no longer an us and you're a them? And my thought is, if ultimately we come from one place called, let's say, North Africa, then isn't everything us? And so doesn't everything belong to everybody? Or at what point are you so diluted that you're no longer a part of the original?
Okay, when you talk about the original